The note was cold and final, just 5 words: "You're 16th, old enough to survive." No explanation, no apology. Just a piece of paper that confirmed what I already knew after 3 days of wandering Rome alone. My parents had abandoned me in a foreign country and weren't coming back. I kept staring at the hotel receptionist, waiting for her to say something different. "I'm sorry, miss. They checked out this morning." My heart pounded against my ribs like it wanted to escape. "There must be some mistake," I stammered. My parents wouldn't just leave. But they had. I followed the staff member upstairs, my legs feeling too heavy for my body. The room was empty. Not a single trace of them remained, not my suitcase, not my passport, not even my small backpack that had been my constant companion. I collapsed against the wall, my phone clutched in my trembling hands. Every call went straight to voicemail. Every text remained undelivered. "Where are you? Is this a joke? I'm really freaking out." Silence was the only answer I received. That night, the cold from the train station bench seeped into my bones as I curled up, trying to make myself invisible. People walked past, some throwing curious glances, others deliberately looking away. I was a ghost now, present but unseen. The morning sun brought no warmth, only the crushing reality that I had been erased from my parents' lives. I found the note in my jacket pocket, written in my mother's handwriting. 5 words that shattered everything I thought I knew about family. 5 words that left me standing in a foreign country with nothing but the clothes on my back. I wandered the cobbled streets of Rome for days, hunger gnawing at my insides until I could barely think. The smell of fresh bread pulled me toward a small bakery on a corner. My fingers reached out without permission, desperate for anything to quiet the screaming in my stomach. Trying to steal, a firm voice caught me before I could grab the baguette. I turned slowly, expecting anger ready to run. Instead, I met the eyes of an older woman with snow-minus white hair and a flower-minus speckled apron. "Hungry?" she asked, her voice neither accusatory nor sympathetic. I nodded, barely moving, afraid this moment of kindness might evaporate. "You take bread, you wash trays," she said, unlocking the bakery door. "Until I can see my reflection in them." Her name was Marta, and she owned that bakery for over 30 years. No husband, no kids, just an old oven, a cat named Espresso, and hands hardened by flour and fire. That night, I scrubbed 20 baking trays until my fingers were raw and my back ached. The water was freezing, the vinegar cleaner burned my skin, but I had never felt so grateful. "Good enough," Marta said when I finished. Upstairs, last room down the hall. Old mattress, thin blanket. Not fancy, but better than the street. I wanted to ask why she was helping me, but she had already turned back to her rising dough. In that tiny room, under a faded blanket, I slept without fear for the first time in days. No train whistles, no hunger pangs, no terror of being forgotten. The next morning, Marta placed a warm croissant in my hand before I could speak. "Eat," she said. "Then learn to shape dough." She never asked about my past, never questioned why I was alone. Maybe she already knew some stories were better left untold. Day by day, I learned to feel when dough was just my wrist to dust flour evenly, to gauge the of and heat by its hum. Marta didn't teach with instructions, she taught with glances, with do-minus-overs, with quiet corrections. "Better next time," she'd say, and somehow, those 3 words carried more encouragement than any praise I'd ever received. Months passed, and once the constant hunger faded, I started thinking beyond mere survival. Behind the bakery, I found a discarded backpack with a cracked laptop inside. 3 days of tinkering later, the screen flickered to life, dim and slow, but working. My first self-minus made light in the darkness. I used free W-5 from the cafe next door, standing by the window to catch the signal. At first, I didn't know what I was searching for until I found a free GE Deep Rep site. By day, I baked and cleaned. By night, I crouched near a tiny window, relearning math and history in an English that now felt foreign. Chemistry formulas filled the backs of pastry boxes, underlined with borrowed pens. Martin ever asked why I studied, only saying once, "As long as you're trying, that's enough." I passed my GED test a year later, not perfectly, but enough to prove I could do more than just survive. An abandoned magazine sparked my interest in business and finance. I devoured articles, forums, and analyses, using a dictionary to understand complex terms. With €100 saved from tips, I made my first investment in a small Italian startup. 2 weeks later, the stock rippled. I stared at the numbers flashing on screen, my heart pounding, not because I'd made money, but because for once I saw direct results from what I'd learned on my own. Half the profits bought a new espresso machine for the bakery. The other half I kept for a dream I hadn't yet named. You've changed, Marta told me one evening. You used to walk like the floor might collapse under you. Now you walk like you know where you're going. I didn't respond, but inside I knew I wasn't just the abandoned girl anymore. At 19, I registered my first business license as Olivia Consulting. I started by helping tourists navigate local markets, then moved to assisting international students and undocumented workers with financial strategies. I showed them how to open digital accounts, find online income, save every euro for future dreams. I didn't charge fixed fees. Some clients gave thanks, others simply cards or conversations. I kept everything as proof that I could help someone else, that I had value beyond being unwanted. Marta never questioned my growing business, though she must have noticed when I paid the bakery's gas bill after she sighed at the mailbox. She said nothing when I installed a new security camera after someone broke the window. And when I handed her the first smartphone she'd ever owned, with large fonts and a speed dial but unlabeled Olivia, she simply smiled. This old lady doesn't get these apps, she said, but she knows how to say thank minus you. I built my business quietly, never posting online except occasional pastry photos to promote the shop. No one knew that Olivia, the girl once abandoned in Rome, was now advising nearly 30 clients across Europe. I sent money back to youth support centers in Ohio, the state I'd once called home. Each month, a different program, a life I chose, skill summer camp, free coding classes, mental health groups for rejected teens. I never signed my name, only from someone who survived. One day, Marta found me surrounded by finance papers and glowing spreadsheets. "What are you building?" she asked. I smiled, truly, for the first time. A place for people no one believes in to start over. She stared at me for a long moment before saying, "Then don't forget to start with yourself." Everything changed the morning Marta placed a crumpled newspaper on the counter, tapping a small box in the real estate section. Foreclosure property minus lakefront lot, Westwood, Cincinnati, Ohio. I recognized the address immediately, the house my parents bought after abandoning me. The one they'd posted online with captions like "Fresh start and grateful for the peace life has given us." Now it was being auctioned off. "What are you going to do?" Marta asked, her eyes sharp and knowing. That night, I registered for the auction under Olivia Consulting, prepared the paperwork, and booked my flight to the U.S. The Cincinnati air felt different as I stood in the parking lot outside the county administration building. I wore a charcoal gray suit, my hair tied up, thin Minoas-rimmed glasses disguising my face. Marta stood beside me, raising the paddle when I whispered the numbers. When the gavel came down and sold to number 160 to echoed across the lot, I felt no victory or revenge. What I felt was closure, like I'd finally shut a door I was once too afraid to walk through. "You could have walked away," Marta said in the car. "But you looked it in the eye." That's the difference between running and continuing. The meeting at the small real estate office was arranged through my attorney, the only person who knew my true identity. I arrived early, composed and waiting, listening to the ticking clock. When the door opened, my mother walked in wearing a beige cardigan and oversized sunglasses. My father followed, clutching a worn leather folder, head low, steps hesitant. They didn't recognize me, not a flicker of familiarity crossed their faces. To them, I was just a company representative who had bought their house. I took off my glasses and watched realization crash over them like a wave. "We've met before," I said, my voice steady. "In Rome when I was 16. My mother's fingers gripped her purse strap. "We thought it would be easier for you. We thought if we disappeared, you'd hate us less." I suppressed a bitter smile. "Instead of saying goodbye, you chose to disappear completely. Left me in a foreign country with no money, no passport, no message except old enough to survive." I slid the deed across the table. "I'm the one who bought the house you live in. The paperwork is fully legal. You have 30 days to leave." "You can't do this," my mother whispered, tears forming in her eyes, not from regret, I knew, but from fear. "Can't?" I leaned back. "I used to wait for you to come back for me, just once. But that never happened. I don't need an apology anymore. I need closure." Marta entered then, placing a folder on the table with a sharp nod. "We'll send the formal move minus out schedule tomorrow," she said, her voice colder than steel. "If you need help relocating, our company can refer someone." "We're family, Olivia," my mother pleaded. I stood, gathering my papers. Family doesn't abandon each other in a foreign country and walk away like their child never existed. You made your choice, and now I've made mine. I walked out without looking back. Days later, my mother's venomous posts appeared on social media. She's been poisoned by money and power and came back to steal her parents' home. We just wanted her to grow up strong. We didn't expect she'd return as a stranger. Cold and cruel. Hundreds of comments from people who had never met me judged the daughter who had kicked her parents out. I didn't respond. I didn't need to win online, I needed to win in real life. Once they moved out, I began transforming the house that once symbolized betrayal into something meaningful, a safe place for girls who had been abandoned, just like me. I renamed it Second Light because sometimes the first light goes out too soon, but that doesn't mean it's the last. The worn yellow walls became soft, calming blue. Cold furniture was replaced with cozy fabric sofas, warm lamps, and secondhand bookshelves. The Live, Laugh, Love sign that once hung in the living room was replaced with a simple framed quote, "You are not made to be invisible." The master bedroom became a shared space with bunk beds, each with its own little world, new mattresses, soft pillows, and lockboxes for personal belongings. Marta took charge of the kitchen, teaching the girls to knead dough, maintain oven temperatures, and create perfect pastries. But more importantly, she taught them patience and trust, something it had taken me a long time to relearn. Our first session welcomed 3 girls: Jamie, kicked out for rejecting her family's religion; Asha, who wandered near the train station after her stepfather refused to take her; and Zoe, who didn't speak for the first week, just stared at the floor. I didn't ask many questions, just said, "If you're here today, then you deserve to stay." We had dinner together every Saturday, no phones allowed at the table. Slowly, short answers turned into stories, silence into laughter. One day, I saw Zoe quietly place a slice of Marta's toast on Jamie's windowsill with a folded note, "In case you're hungry tonight." I didn't intervene, just leaned against the wall and smiled. My consulting work continued, funding Second Light and job training programs for the girls. With each new arrival, I took her upstairs to what was once my bedroom, now an office and reading nook. I pointed to the wooden sign above the bookshelf, "We don't promise to replace your old family, but we will not disappear." Then I handed her slippers, clean pajamas, and asked one question: "Tonight, would you rather sleep or talk?" The answer didn't matter. What mattered was she had a choice. On Second Light's 1 Noah's year anniversary, the sunset poured through the kitchen window, bathing everything in gold. Cinnamon cookies baked in the oven while Asha and Jamie argued over the playlist upstairs. I stood by the old door frame that used to whistle with wind on freezing nights when I was the forgotten child. Now it held a string of tiny lights, twinkling gently after dark. Marta stood at the counter showing Eliza, our newest arrival, jumpy when voices raised, how to slice apples safely. Under Marta's guidance, the girl softened, her tense shoulders relaxing as she worked. I stepped into the backyard later that night, looking up at the golden lights glowing under the porch. The night sky was clear, stars twinkling, wind rustling through the trees like a gentle blessing. Second Light wasn't just a shelter, it was a declaration. Proof to anyone who had ever been abandoned, labeled a burden, or made to feel invisible that we don't need to be accepted to exist. We just need a place to begin again, the right way. I looked back at the house, no longer a ghost from memory, and whispered to myself, "This isn't just a house. This is where we begin again. And this time, no one gets left behind."